I transmigrated into a tragic romance novel as the canon fodder male supporting character. The system told me that as long as I completed the plotline of secretly loving the female lead, I could get my payout and retire. So I played my part with utmost diligence and sincerity. Just as the final act was about to end, the cold and aloof CEO cornered me in the break room. Her eyes were red as she said, "Let's stop here." Inside, I was thrilled, but I forced a sorrowful expression and asked, "Why?" She took a deep breath. "Because I realized, you never truly loved me." I was dumbfounded. Wait, what? Why did she suddenly look like the heroine in some cheating drama? Heartbroken by a scumbag. System. This isn't in the script. Chapter 1. I stared at the WeChat message from Willow on my phone, feeling a dull ache in my molars. "Working overtime tonight. Don't wait for me." That was probably the nth time this month. Outside, the CBD skyline glittered like money grew on trees. At my workstation, the only light came from the monitor reflecting on my face. I typed back a short reply. "Okay, don't overwork yourself." Then I flipped my phone face down on the desk. From the neighboring cubicle, David leaned over with half a cookie hanging from his mouth. "Yo, President Lou's busy as ever." "Ah, George, your relationship looks more like a lonely widowhood." I gave a half smile and didn't respond. "Heh, widowhood? I'd kill for that." My real KPI was to perfectly portray the role of the deeply devoted, silently enduring boyfriend of the CEO heroine. Once the plot concluded, I'd collect my huge bonus, leave this world behind, and spend my days on a beach somewhere, sipping cocktails. As for Willow, she was the female lead, the star of this world. I was just a passerby, someone written in to make her eventual romance with the real male lead shine brighter. Simple, safe, lucrative. David swallowed his cookie and lowered his voice. "Oh right. Heard the new vice president parachuted in from HQ's coming tomorrow. Young and promising. And get this, he's Willow's junior from university." My fingers paused on the keyboard. Ah, so the male lead was about to make his entrance. According to the script, I, the boyfriend who secretly loves Willow, was supposed to start feeling a faint sense of insecurity, showing subtle traces of devotion and pain. "Really?" I said, making sure my tone carried a touch of quiet melancholy. "That's good. Willow could use some help with the workload. See that? Perfect emotional layering." David clapped me on the shoulder with an "I get you bro" look. When I got back to the apartment Willow and I shared, it was so quiet I could hear the refrigerator humming. The place was big, luxurious even, like a hotel suite, but it lacked any warmth of home. Willow was rich. She bought the place. I was just the live-in boyfriend, a prop character with a toothbrush. I changed shoes, collapsed onto the sofa, and turned on the TV for background noise. Then I reviewed the system's script outline in my head. Next up, the male lead, Makoto, would enter Willow's life with overwhelming force. I, the devoted supporting boyfriend, would fade into the background, outshined by his charisma. Eventually, Willow would sit me down and say something like, "You're a good man, but I realized what we have isn't love." Then I'd walk away gracefully, cash in my mission reward, and exit the world. Perfect. All I had to do was stay calm, follow the script, and not mess up. My phone buzzed. It was a system notification. Plot progress reminder, tomorrow evening. The female lead Willow will return home slightly drunk after a business dinner with the new Vice President Makoto. Please express appropriate concern mixed with subtle melancholy. Reward, +5 plot points, +100 base credits. Ah, time to get to work. I got up, went to the kitchen, pulled out some hangover medicine, and boiled a kettle of hot water. Once everything was ready, I returned to the sofa, scrolling through my phone, waiting for my female lead to come home, so we could play our parts in the story. Chapter 2. The sound of a key turning in the lock came sometime after 11 at night. I jolted awake from my half-dozing state, instantly adjusting my expression, just tired enough to look natural, but still holding a trace of alertness and concern. The door opened. Willow walked in, carrying with her a faint scent of alcohol and the night breeze. She wore a sharply tailored suit, makeup still flawless, though a hint of weariness lingered in her eyes. I stood up, using my best tone of gentle concern, warm but never suffocating. "You're back. Did you drink a bit too much?" I poured some hot water, the hangover medicines on the table. Willow didn't answer. Her movements were a little slow as she changed her shoes. She stepped into the living room but didn't take the glass I handed her. Instead, she looked straight at me. Her eyes were bright, probing, making my scalp prickle. That wasn't in the script. She was supposed to just say something like, "I'm fine," and go rest quietly in her room. Why was she staring at me like that? I kept my concerned expression steady while mentally shouting at the system, "Hey, the plot's off. The heroine's acting out of character." The system's reply was icy. "No significant deviation detected. Please adapt accordingly." "Adapt your ass, George." Willow finally spoke. Her voice was a little hoarse. "Aren't you tired of acting like this every day?" My heart skipped. What did she mean by that? Was she testing me, trying to measure how deep my love went? I immediately slipped into character, lowering my eyes, forcing a weary but tender smile. What are you talking about? Taking care of you is only natural. You work so hard. Come on, I told myself. Now she should look touched yet distant. Say something like, I'm going to wash up. But Willow didn't move. She took a small step closer, close enough that I could smell the faint perfume on her skin, laced with alcohol. I saw Makoto today, she said. Oh, yeah, I answered carefully, keeping my tone casual but just a little tight. David mentioned him, the new vice president. Right. How did it go? You two getting along? He's very capable, Willow said softly, and charming. Her gaze never left my face. He told me that a woman like me must have a lot of excellent admirers. Ah, there it was, the male lead's first move, compliments, gentle teasing, psychological intrusion. Time for me to look a little uneasy. I hummed softly, fingers absent-mindedly scratching the armrest of the sofa. He's right. You've always been outstanding. Inwardly, I was screaming, come on, ask me if I'm jealous. Give me the setup for the, you're good, but we're not right for each other line. But Willow suddenly smiled, a small, ambiguous smile that sent a chill crawling up my spine. George, she said again, you know, sometimes you're so considerate, it feels fake. My back stiffened. What do you mean? I laughed awkwardly. I treat you well, don't I? Yes, she said quietly. Too well. So well it's flawless, like something calculated down to the decimal. She walked past me, picked up the glass of water I'd poured earlier, now cold, and took a sip. I'm tired. I'll go shower. Without another glance, she turned and disappeared down the hallway to the bedroom. I stood there, staring after her, a strange confusion knotting in my chest. Something about this plot was starting to go off script. Chapter 3. The next morning at work, I couldn't focus. Willow's words from last night kept looping in my head. You're so considerate, it feels fake. Had I overacted? That couldn't be right, the system hadn't issued any warnings. I mentally reviewed my performance over the past few months. Morning and evening greetings, never missed. Birthday and holiday gifts, always on time. Never added onions, ginger, or garlic when cooking for her. Reminded her to wear more when it got cold. Brought her an umbrella every time it rained. A perfect example of boyfriend ethics. The kind of devotion that could go straight into a gentleman's conduct manual. How could that not be deeply affectionate? What? Was clumsy sincerity trending now? I pulled up the system interface to check my stats. Plot completion, 65%. Character alignment, 92%. 92. That was practically award-winning method acting. So what was up with Willow? Was the mind of a woman, even a CEO version, forever unfathomable? George, you spacing out? David rapped on my cubicle wall. President Liu wants to see you in her office. I froze. Here we go. Plot progression. According to the outline, Willow was supposed to start delegating trivial tasks to me because of work stress and emotional avoidance toward her upcoming entanglement with the male lead. In short, my character, the safe boyfriend, would now show his usefulness and lack of challenge. I adjusted my expression, took a deep breath, and headed to her office. Knocked. Entered. Willow was behind her large desk, reading documents. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows, gilding her silhouette with a golden edge. The woman really had presence. I asked in my most professional tone, President Liu, you wanted to see me? She looked up and gestured for me to sit. There's something I need you to handle. She closed the folder. Next weekend, there's a business dinner with Darju. You'll come with me. I blinked. Wait, what? Wasn't the script supposed to have me organizing documents? A business dinner? That wasn't something a low-level employee like me should attend, and definitely not something my supporting character persona should be part of. Willow arched an eyebrow. What's wrong? Is there a problem? No, I stammered, my brain spinning fast. It's just, are you sure it's appropriate? I might, embarrass you. You're my boyfriend, aren't you? What's inappropriate about that? She said it with complete composure. Just dress properly. Her gaze was calm but carried an unspoken authority. Or, she added, do you not want to go? A jolt went through me. Was this another test? Of course not, I said quickly, almost too quickly. If you want me there, I'll be there. Willow's lips curved, just barely. Good, I'll let you know the details. I walked out of her office in a daze, the plot galloping wildly off track. System, what the hell is going on? Plot adjustment detected. Original, organize files, task has been replaced with attend business dinner. Evaluation, adjustment remains within reasonable parameters for devoted boyfriend, archetype and may enhance male lead interaction opportunities. No negative impact to main storyline detected. Please adapt accordingly. Adapt accordingly my ass. You're sending me to be a human prop at their flirting session. Why not rename yourself the cheating system while you're at it? And what was Willow thinking? Really? She knew perfectly well I'd be uncomfortable in that kind of setting, awkward, out of place, probably making a fool of myself. Was this her subtle way of pushing me away? Or did she actually want me there? I shook my head hard. Ridiculous thought. This had to be a scripted setup, me being the socially stiff foil to Makoto's confident charm. Yeah, that had to be it. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. It's just acting. I'm a professional. Chapter 4. The next few days passed quietly. Willow was still as busy as ever, and her interactions with Makoto Ito were visibly increasing. Rumors had started to circulate around the office. People whispered that Vice President Ito seemed to give President Liu special attention, that they looked like a perfect match, talented men, beautiful woman, a pairing straight out of a corporate fairy tale. Following my supporting character script, I made sure to display just the right blend of forced smiles and silent longing. When colleagues gossiped about them in the cafeteria, I'd bow my head and quietly eat. When I saw Willow and Makoto leaving a meeting together, I'd glance from afar, then turn away with practiced restraint. My acting was seamless, natural emotions, impeccable timing. I was so convincing I almost managed to move myself. But Willow, on the other hand, showed no particular reaction. Her attitude toward me remained the same, neither warm nor cold. Occasionally she'd toss me a few caring words, but there was always a thin, invisible wall between us. Until Friday afternoon, right before the end of the workday, a message from Willow popped up on WeChat. Are you free tonight? My heart skipped a beat. A plot trigger. Nothing planned. Why? Come with me somewhere. Okay. I didn't ask further. A kept man should know his place. After work, Willow drove. We headed downtown, and eventually pulled up in front of a high-end suit boutique. I blinked in confusion. She unfastened her seatbelt and said simply, "Get out." I hesitated. Why are we here? Picking out something for you to wear to the weekend dinner, she replied, tone utterly flat, as if she were commenting on the weather. I followed her inside. The staff greeted us warmly. Willow clearly wasn't a first-time customer. She went straight to the point. Find a few suits that fit his measurements, something appropriate for a business dinner. And just like that, I became a mannequin being maneuvered by store clerks, changing outfits one after another. Willow sat on the sofa nearby, legs crossed, flipping through a magazine. Occasionally, she'd look up and offer brief, cutting evaluations. This color looks too flashy. The waistline's not right. Try the navy one. When I put on the navy blue suit and stood in front of the mirror, I had to admit, it made me look decent, sharper, more put together. Willow set the magazine aside and walked over. She stopped behind me, studying my reflection carefully, eyes scanning me from top to bottom like she was inspecting a piece of merchandise. Then, she reached out to adjust my collar. Her fingertips were cool. When they brushed the skin of my neck, I stiffened involuntarily. This one, she said softly, her voice close enough for me to feel her breath. In the mirror, I could see her face, so close, and in her eyes, something I couldn't decipher. Willow, I said hesitantly, you don't have to spend so much. I'm bringing my date, she interrupted, her tone carrying that natural, effortless authority of hers. He can't show up looking cheap. Her words pricked like a tiny thorn. So that was it, saving face. Of course, what else could it be? Whatever strange flicker I'd felt inside me vanished instantly. Thanks, I murmured. She withdrew her hand and turned to the clerk. This one, adjusted to his measurements. I want it ready before the weekend. By the time we left the boutique, the sky had already darkened. Once we got back in the car, Willow didn't start the engine right away. She kept her eyes on the road ahead and said quietly, George, sometimes I really can't figure out what you're thinking. My pulse jumped, but I kept my expression light. What could I be thinking? I just work, come home, and wait for you. She turned her head to look at me, deeply, silently. Then, without another word, she started the car. Outside, the city lights streaked past the window, flashing over her face in fleeting patterns of light and shadow, making it impossible to tell what she was feeling. Chapter 5. The weekend dinner party turned out to be exactly what I'd expected, a grand showcase of vanity and power. Crystal chandeliers shimmered overhead, their light refracting into dizzying glints. The air was thick with the mingled scents of perfume and fine food. I followed a step behind Willow, wearing that expensive navy suit she'd picked out for me, feeling like an ugly duckling who'd wandered into Swan Lake by mistake. Willow, however, moved through the crowd like she was born to it, graceful, composed, perfectly poised as she exchanged handshakes and business cards. When she introduced me, her tone was calm and natural. This is my boyfriend, George. Most people responded with polite surprise, quickly covering it with the standard compliment. Ah, such a lovely couple. But behind their smiles, I caught the glimmer of curiosity, judgment, calculation, things that no polite expression could hide. I kept my well-practiced smile fixed and silently prayed for the night to end soon. Then I saw him, Makoto Ito. He approached us, wine glass in hand, wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, exuding the kind of refined charm that could disarm anyone. President Liu. Mr. Wang. He raised his glass slightly, his gaze lingering on me for a fraction too long. Mr. Wang looks quite dashing tonight. I returned the gesture with a polite grin. You flatter me. Vice President Ito. Where do you work, Mr. Wang? He asked, effortlessly casual. Willow answered before I could. He's with us, in the project department. Makoto nodded, mildly surprised. Then he smiled again, smooth as ever. Ah, the advantage of proximity. President Liu is truly lucky, career and love, both flourishing. His tone was perfectly courteous, but somehow the way he looked at Willow carried a glint of something else, admiration, maybe even intent. According to the script, this was my cue to feel insecure and inadequate, and I did, at least, convincingly. I lowered my gaze slightly, took a sip of wine, as if to hide the quiet turmoil in my heart. Willow and Makoto began discussing some business project. I couldn't follow, couldn't contribute, just stood there like a decorative extra. After a while, someone came up to greet Makoto. He gave us a polite smile and excused himself. Willow turned to me. A bit boring, isn't it? It's fine, I said. Let's stay a little longer, she murmured. Then we'll find a moment to slip out. I blinked in surprise. Was she being considerate of me? Before I could think further, a waiter passed by carrying a tray of wine. Someone brushed past, bumping the tray, and in a blink, half a glass of red wine splashed across my white shirt sleeve. The waiter's face went pale. He stammered apology after apology. The commotion wasn't loud, but it was enough to draw a few curious glances. I looked down at the vivid red stain spreading across my sleeve, momentarily frozen. This wasn't in the script. It's fine, Willow said first, her tone calm as she reassured the terrified waiter. Then she turned to me. Go to the restroom and clean up. I nodded and made my way there, feeling awkward and out of place. At the sink, I turned on the tap and started scrubbing the stain. Red wine was stubborn. It only faded a little no matter how hard I rubbed. My shirt sleeve was soaked, wrinkled, clinging to my wrist. What a mess. I stared at my reflection in the mirror, rumpled suit, wet sleeve, ridiculous expression, and felt a wave of irritation rise inside me. This kind of place really wasn't made for someone like me. Need a hand. A voice came from behind me. I turned and saw Makoto walk into the restroom. Vice President Ito. I forced a polite smile. No need. It's probably not going to come out anyway. Makoto stopped beside the sink next to mine. He didn't turn on the faucet, just leaned casually against the counter, studying me. These events can be exhausting, he said lightly, as if making small talk. Too many unspoken rules. One tiny misstep, and something goes wrong. I'm fine, I replied, keeping to my reserved persona. How long have you and President Liu been together? He asked, tone deceptively casual. Here it was, the male lead's probe. Almost a year. I answered according to the system's preset background. A year. That's not short. Makoto nodded thoughtfully. Then, with a hint of something beneath his words, he added, President Liu's quite exceptional. There's no shortage of people interested in her. For you to stay by her side this long, Mr. Wang, you must have something special. It sounded like a compliment, but if you listened closely, there was a subtle edge, an undercurrent of challenge. I smiled faintly, choosing not to respond. He shifted slightly, meeting my eyes. But you know, he said, in relationships, being good isn't always enough. Sometimes what really matters is attraction, a balance of power, a spark that comes from being evenly matched. Don't you agree? His smile was still gentle, but his eyes said otherwise. They gleamed with unspoken provocation. And in that instant, I understood. He wasn't here to comfort me. He was here to stake his claim, to imply that I wasn't worthy of Willow, that he was the one who matched her, the one who belonged in her world. According to my deeply devoted and silently enduring character arc, this was the part where I should feel stung, powerless to argue, left to quietly bear the humiliation. I looked down at my dripping sleeve, took a slow breath, and let the silence settle. You're right, Vice President Ito, I said softly. I still have a lot to work on. Makoto seemed satisfied. He gave my shoulder a friendly pat. Don't take it too seriously. I was just making conversation. You'd better get back. President Liu might be wondering where you are. With that, he left, his polished shoes clicking lightly against the marble floor. I lifted my gaze to the mirror. The man staring back at me had no particular expression, just calm, detached eyes. Something special. Yes, my special quality was knowing exactly what I was, an actor playing his part, evenly matched. Please, we weren't even from the same universe. I grabbed a handful of paper towels and wiped my hands clean, the motion almost mechanical. All right then, the show must go on. Chapter 6. When I returned to the hall, my mood restored, I saw Willow standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows in the corner, talking on the phone. She had her back to the rest of the room, her silhouette outlined against the glow of the city lights beyond the glass. She looked fragile, I didn't approach her. I leaned against a column in a discreet spot and watched from afar. Her expression didn't look good, she was frowning, rubbing her temples from time to time. When she hung up, she didn't move right away. She kept looking out the window, lost in thought. For a moment, that usual strength in her, that cool, calculated confidence, seemed to fade, revealing a trace of weariness, almost human. Then I remembered the background information the system had given me. Willow's parents had a terrible relationship. Her family had been fighting for years over control of the company. Her position as president hadn't been handed to her easily, until now. That information had only been part of the script, but seeing her like that, from behind, her figure tinged with melancholy by the reflection of city lights, I felt a strange, faint sting somewhere deep in my chest. Just a sting. And then I returned to reality. She was the protagonist. She had her own story, her own hero destined to save her. My role was to accompany her from the shadows, to serve as contrast, and then to disappear gracefully. Willow turned around. Her gaze swept across the hall and finally stopped on me. She crossed the room and came closer. "Why are you standing there?" she asked. "I just came back. You seemed busy." Her eyes dropped to my damp sleeve. "Didn't the stain come off?" "No. I think I'll have to throw the shirt away," I replied. "It's just a shirt," she said casually. "Come on. Say goodbye to the host. We're leaving." With that, she reached out and straightened my tie, which had been crooked since the incident. Her fingers brushed against my neck, cold and light as a feather. My body tensed instantly. That much physical contact in one night, it was already off script. "President Liu," I couldn't help saying, my voice a bit dry. "Are you always this considerate with all your male companions?" Her hand froze midair. She withdrew it, raising her eyes to me with a cool look. "What do you think?" she replied. I was left speechless. She said nothing more and turned to walk toward the host. I watched her go, her back straight and steady, and again that uncomfortable feeling twisted my stomach. The ride back was silent. Willow drove with a tense expression, her jawline sharp and rigid. I didn't know whether her bad mood came from that phone call or from my reckless question. I wisely chose to stay quiet, watching the traffic pass by outside the window. Almost at the apartment, her voice broke the silence. "George, what do you think of Makoto?" My mind flashed a red alert. Trap question. According to the archetype of the insecure devoted boyfriend, I should have answered something like, "He's excellent. I can't compare to him." But when I looked at her profile, the dashboard light reflecting on her face, the words caught in my throat. "He's a capable guy," I finally said. "Young, talented, very good at social relations." Willow gave a faint nod. She said nothing else. When we parked and got into the elevator, the silence wrapped around us again. The small space felt tighter than usual, the air heavy. "George," she said again. "Yes. If someday you feel tired, or if you have other thoughts, you can tell me directly." Her voice was calm, almost emotionless. My heart skipped a beat. I looked at her. She wasn't looking at me, but at our blurred reflections on the elevator's metal door. "What do you mean?" I asked. The elevator chimed, a soft ding, and the doors opened. Willow stepped out first. "Nothing," she said indifferently. "Just saying." I followed her to the apartment door, watching her back as she entered the code. The warm light from the hallway bathed her figure, but at that moment, she seemed strangely lonely. Just saying. I didn't believe that. Was she already thinking about how to give me the good guy card? Was the plot about to speed up? Chapter 7. After that dinner party, life seemed to return to normal, but somehow, something felt different. Willow seemed busier than before. She went on several business trips with Makoto. Rumors in the company grew even wilder. Some people even started betting on when I'd be kicked out. Even David's eyes carried a hint of sympathy when he looked at me. I continued playing my part as usual, going to work, getting off work, occasionally sending Willow a few lukewarm WeChat messages of concern. She didn't always reply quickly, but she always did. It's just that between her lines, there was a kind of distant politeness, businesslike, detached. The system prompted me, plot completion steadily rising, now nearing 70%. Victory was in sight, and yet, I couldn't shake off an odd irritation inside. It felt like knowing a storm was coming, but the dark clouds just kept hovering above, pressing down so heavily that you could hardly breathe. You almost wished the downpour would just come already and be done with it. That Friday, I got off work earlier than Willow. I bought some groceries on the way home, thinking I'd make something simple to eat. Just as I started steaming the rice, my mom called. "George, what are you up to?" Her voice sounded cheerful. "Cooking." "Mom, what's up?" "Nothing big. Just wanted to tell you your dad and I signed up for a travel group. We're going south next month for a few days." I rinsed some vegetables as I said. "That's great. You two should have gone on a trip long ago." "Yeah. Well, Aunt Wu and her husband already went. They said it was amazing." She paused, lowering her voice a little. "So, Willow didn't go with you?" "She's working late," I said. "Oh." She dragged the word out. "Xiao Wang, Be honest with Mom, did you two have a fight? My hand froze midair. No, we're fine. Why do you ask? I saw, what's it called, that finance news website. There was a photo of Willow and a nice-looking young man next to her. Said he's some vice president or something, and the comments all said they looked good together. My heart skipped a beat. The internet really was too damn efficient. Mom, that's her colleague. Just normal work stuff. Don't overthink it. I cut in quickly. How can I not think about it? You're such a quiet boy, never good at handling things. Willow's such an outstanding girl, you need to put in some effort. Treat her well. Don't just sit there like a block of wood all day. Mom began her usual lecture. From how to be more considerate of your girlfriend to how to maintain a relationship, an endless flow of advice. I kept replying with vague MMS and s, but deep down, I felt a dull sting. See, even my mom thought I wasn't good enough for Willow, that it was only a matter of time before she dumped me, and though that was technically true, hearing it from my own mother still hurt my pride. Did you hear me? Spend more time with her. Go see a movie or something this weekend. Don't just stay home all the time. Got it, Mom. Got it. The pot's boiling, gotta go, I said, practically fleeing as I hung up. I stood there for a while, staring blankly at the water running down the sink. Not good enough. Yeah, we were never from the same world to begin with. I turned off the faucet and wiped my hands. The smell of cooked rice was already filling the air. It was fine. Once I finished the mission and got the money, I could make sure my real-world parents could travel wherever they wanted, whenever they wanted. As for Willow, she'd end up with Makoto. Like in every fairy tale, the prince and princess living happily ever after, and I, the temporary actor, would quietly exit the stage. At least, that's what I told myself, but the tightness in my chest wouldn't go away. Chapter 8. When Willow came home, I had already set the table. A simple meal, 1 meat dish, 1 vegetable, and a soup. She paused when she saw the dinner table, then smiled slightly. Well, look at that, the sun must be rising in the west today. She rarely ate at home, and I was too lazy to cook. Normally, we ate separately or ordered takeout. Got off work early, just threw something together, I said, serving her a bowl of rice. She put down her bag, washed her hands, and sat down. She seemed to be in a good mood. Tastes pretty good, she commented after trying a bite. I sat across from her. As long as it's edible. The meal was quiet, the only sounds coming from the soft clink of chopsticks and bowls. I hesitated, wondering if I should bring up the call with my mom today, say it in a joking tone. Something like, my mom saw you and Makoto on a finance news site and asked if I was about to lose my job. That would fit my character setting of the slightly jealous but pretending to be calm boyfriend. But when I looked at her calm profile as she ate, the words reached my lips and I swallowed them back down. Forget it. The fewer complications, the better. My parents are going on a trip next week, I said instead, changing the subject. Oh, where to? She looked up. Down south. I didn't ask for details. That's nice. It's good for them to get out and see more of the world. She paused for a moment, then said casually, next month's my birthday. My family might host a small gathering. My chopsticks froze midair. A birthday party? That wasn't in the script, but by common storytelling logic, that had to be an important plot point, either the moment when the main couple's relationship deepened, or the turning point where I, the male supporting character, was completely written out. Oh, okay, I nodded. Do you need me to prepare anything? Just show up, Willow said, glancing at me. But my parents will probably come too. I almost choked on my rice. Wait, what? Meeting the parents? Wasn't that a bit of a huge leap in the plot? On the surface, Willow and I seemed fine, but according to the novel's setup, we were already in the late middle stage, close to breaking up. Meeting the parents now? Where was the logic in that? I tried to keep my voice steady. Your parents know about me? Of course, Willow said naturally. You're my boyfriend. Would it be strange if they didn't? Not strange, no, but the timing was way off. My thoughts were spinning. At that time, Vice President Ito will be there too, right? I asked cautiously. Willow's hand, holding her chopsticks, paused. She looked up at me, a hint of curiosity in her eyes. Do you want him to come, or not? I was speechless. How was I supposed to answer that? If I said no, I'd sound insecure and petty. If I said yes, it wouldn't fit my jealous admirer character. I was just asking, I muttered, lowering my head to scoop up more rice. Willow didn't press further, but I thought I caught the faintest trace of a smile on her lips. The rest of the meal felt tasteless. After dinner, Willow got a work call and went into the study. I cleaned up the dishes and sat on the couch, uneasy. System, get out here. What's with this meet the parents thing? It wasn't in the script. New plot node detected, birthday gathering. After analysis, This event aligns with common tropes such as relationship exposure/trial. It will help advance upcoming conflicts, e.g., parental disapproval, increased comparison, and positively contribute to the main storyline. Please adapt accordingly and stay in character. Adapt accordingly. How the hell was I supposed to do that? Was I supposed to play the devoted boyfriend in front of her parents? Then wait to be compared to Makoto. Enduring their "you're not good enough for our daughter" stares. How cliché could this plot get? But the system said it had a positive effect on the main storyline. Maybe this was the catalyst to speed up the breakup process. Thinking of it that way, I actually felt calmer. The sooner it ends, the sooner I get paid, the sooner I can retire. Perfect. I took a deep breath and braced myself for the coming storm. Chapter 9. I kept going to work as usual, all the while quietly observing Willow and Makoto's interactions. They still often attended meetings together, went on business trips, and communicated frequently. The looks people at the company gave me now carried not only sympathy, but also a faint trace of curiosity, like they were watching a slow-motion car crash. But I noticed something interesting. Willow didn't seem to treat Makoto with anything beyond professional closeness. At least, not in any way I could see. Their discussions were efficient and focused. Their occasional jokes stayed within appropriate bounds. Makoto, however, the way he looked at Willow, admiring, determined, almost possessive, was becoming more and more obvious. That day after work, when I went down to the underground garage to get my car, I happened to see Willow and Makoto standing by her car, talking. I stopped instinctively, hiding behind a nearby pillar. Makoto was saying, "So it's settled. Then, I'll go with you to meet the client next week." Willow nodded. "All right, thanks for the effort. No need to be so polite with me," Makoto said with a casual smile, his tone familiar. "By the way, how's the birthday gathering coming along? Need any help from me?" "It's almost ready. My assistant's taking care of most of it." "Good. I'm really looking forward to it." Makoto's voice softened slightly. "I've got a little surprise for you that day." Willow seemed to pause for a moment, then smiled faintly. "You didn't have to go to the trouble. For you, it's not trouble," he said, his tone carrying a hint of insistence. I leaned against the cold pillar, lips curling in a silent laugh. A surprise? More like a shock. The male lead was clearly preparing his big move. Then I heard Willow say, "George should like it." I froze. What did I have to do with this? Makoto also hesitated before replying. "Mr. Wong is indeed quite an interesting person." I couldn't tell if that was a compliment or something else. "He can be a bit unusual at times." There was a faint smile in Willow's voice. Unusual. Was that her polite way of saying I was fake, or just boring? I didn't stay to listen further. I turned and took another exit. My chest felt tight. This was exactly the breakup arc I'd been waiting for. Yet seeing the male and female leads share their little sweet moments right in front of me. Hearing Willow talk about me in that tone, it still made me uncomfortable. Maybe it was just male pride acting up. After all, being compared to someone else, being quietly deemed inferior, never feels good. When I got back to the apartment, Willow wasn't home yet. I poured myself a glass of water and stood on the balcony, staring at the glittering city lights. The city was radiant, but it couldn't brighten the faint confusion inside me. The mission was almost complete. I should have been happy, but the thought of that upcoming birthday party, meeting Willow's parents, standing next to Makoto like some kind of sideshow clown, filled me with irritation. Ding! My phone buzzed. A WeChat notification. It was from Willow. "Last-minute business dinner. I'll be late." Then another message followed. "Remember to eat dinner." I stared at the brief messages for a while, my fingers hovering over the screen. Finally, I replied with a single word, "Okay." Setting the phone down, I tilted back my head and drained the rest of the water in one go. The cold liquid slid down my throat, cooling that restless burn inside me. Keep acting. The show's almost over. Chapter 10. The weather wasn't great on the day of the birthday party, gray and heavy, as if it might rain at any moment. I stood in front of the mirror in the cloakroom, wearing the suit Willow had bought for me, and thought I looked like a lousy actor waiting to go on stage. Willow pushed the door open and came in. She was already dressed, in a champagne-colored evening gown that made her fair skin seem even paler. Her presence filled the room effortlessly. She walked up behind me, looked at me through the mirror, and without a word, reached out to adjust my tie again. This time, her fingers lingered a little longer than usual, the cool tips brushing lightly against the side of my neck. "Are you nervous?" she asked suddenly. "A little," I admitted. Facing an unknown script, and the upcoming meet the parents, it would have been a lie to say I wasn't. "There's no need to be," she said in her usual calm tone. "My parents don't bite." She withdrew her hand, opened her jewelry box, and put on a pair of diamond earrings with graceful composure. Tilting her head slightly, she caught the light in the gems. "But you," she added softly, "no matter what you see or hear later, try not to look too surprised." My chest tightened. What did she mean by that? Was she giving me a warning? Could there be something more to today than her parents and Makoto's so-called surprise? I didn't have time to ask. She had already turned to leave, saying over her shoulder, "It's about time, let's go." The party was held at a villa in the suburbs owned by Willow's family, much larger than her downtown apartment, and somehow more home-like, though it still carried that same air of cold refinement. By the time we arrived, the place was already full. Most of the guests were Willow's business associates and company executives, polished, well-dressed people mingling with champagne glasses in hand. Makoto was there too, laughing and chatting animatedly. When he saw us, he immediately came over with a bright smile. "The birthday girl is here." He was dressed more formally than usual, his smile even more dazzling. He handed Willow a long, elegantly wrapped gift box. "Happy birthday, Waiwi." He called her Waiwi. Standing beside Willow, I felt the air around us go momentarily quiet. A few subtle glances flickered our way. Willow accepted the gift, her expression unchanged. "Thank you, you shouldn't have. Just a small token," Makoto said with his usual friendly smile, then turned to me. "Mr. Wong, you look sharp today." "Vice President Ito." I nodded politely, doing my best to play my supporting role. Willow's parents arrived a little later. Mrs. Liu was a well-maintained, elegant woman. Mr. Liu, a stern man with sharp eyes. They exchanged a few words with Willow before their gaze turned to me. "Dad, Mom, this is George," Willow said naturally. "Hello, sir, ma'am," I greeted, trying to appear calm and respectful. Mrs. Liu looked me up and down, her smile polite but distant. "We've heard Willow mention you often. You're quite the gentleman." Mr. Liu gave only a brief nod, silent but assessing. That sharp gaze made the back of my neck prickle. After a few polite exchanges, they were soon surrounded by other guests. I let out a quiet sigh of relief. It felt like I'd just passed a preliminary screening. The party went on as planned: cake cutting, speeches, social chatter. I kept my presence minimal, staying beside Willow and playing the part of the quiet, well-mannered companion, until Makoto took the microphone and walked over to the small band set up in the living room. "Everyone," he said, smiling, "since we're all here today, I'd like to dedicate a song to our beautiful birthday girl, to wish her a happy birthday, and to thank her for all the care she's given me over the years." As soon as he finished speaking, the gentle sound of a piano filled the air. Makoto began to sing an old English love song. His voice was deep and smooth, carrying a kind of quiet magnetism. His eyes, full of tenderness, never left Willow. The whole room respectfully fell silent. Many people wore smiles, some teasing, some wistful. So this was the surprise he mentioned. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching Willow and Makoto at the center of everyone's attention. They really did look like a perfect match, like something straight out of a romantic TV drama. Was I supposed to feel awkward, or sad? Somehow, I felt neither. Just a strange, numb calmness spreading through me. Halfway through the song, I turned my head, almost instinctively, wanting to see how Willow was reacting. But she wasn't looking at Makoto. Her eyes passed over the crowd and landed on me. There was something complicated in her gaze, an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. It looked like sorrow and maybe a touch of resolve. The moment our eyes met, she quickly looked away, as if it had never happened, like it was all just my imagination. The song ended, followed by thunderous applause. Amid cheers and teasing voices, Makoto walked toward Willow, clearly intending to invite her for the first dance. But before he could reach her, Willow suddenly turned and walked toward me. In full view of everyone, she reached out and gently took hold of my wrist. Her fingertips were cool against my skin, but her grip was firm, leaving no room for refusal. "George," she said softly, her voice not loud but perfectly clear, "dance with me." I froze. Makoto's smile faltered for a split second. The crowd's attention shifted instantly, from him to me. Surprise, curiosity, amusement. My mind went blank. This wasn't in the script. "System," I shouted inwardly. What the hell is happening now? The cold mechanical voice, for once, sounded alarmed. "Major plot deviation detected. Warning. Host, maintain your character setting." Maintain my ass. What was I supposed to do now? Refuse? That would mean slapping Willow's face in front of everyone. Except, that would be openly challenging the male lead. Willow looked at me, her expression calm but stubborn. "You don't want to?" I saw a faint trace of fragility deep in her eyes, so fleeting it was almost invisible. Before I knew what I was doing, I placed my hand into hers. "It would be my honor," I said. Chapter 11. The band, being tactful, switched to a slow, gentle tune. Willow led me to the center of the living room, where a temporary dance floor had been cleared. My hand hovered awkwardly at her waist. I could feel the smooth texture of her dress, and the faint warmth of her body beneath it. Her other hand rested lightly on my shoulder, guiding my clumsy steps as we began to move with the music. I could barely dance. Every step I took was thanks to her lead, and more than once, I nearly stepped on her foot. "Sorry," I murmured, feeling a bead of sweat forming at my temple. It's fine. Willow's voice was close, so close that her breath brushed against my ear. Just follow me. We were standing very near each other, so near that I could see the tremor of her eyelashes, and smell the faint, pleasant scent that clung to her skin. Around us, I could sense whispers and stares, sharp, curious, judgmental, but for once, none of it seemed to matter. All my attention was consumed by the woman in my arms. She moved with confidence and power, completely in control of the rhythm. It didn't feel like a dance. It felt like a silent declaration. Why me? I asked quietly. Vice President Ito. There's no reason. Willow interrupted, lifting her eyes to meet mine. Tonight, I just want to dance with you. Her gaze was steady and bright, filled with a determination that left no room for doubt. And in that moment, I forgot about the system, the mission, the fact that I was just an actor in someone else's story. I simply followed her lead, awkwardly, sincerely, moving across a stage that was never meant for me. When the song ended, the applause that followed was even louder than before, but also more complicated. Willow released me, nodded politely to the crowd, then took my hand again and led me out of the dance floor, straight toward the terrace on the second floor. The noise and the probing eyes were shut behind us. Out on the terrace, the night breeze was cool, brushing the heat from my face. The soft glow of the garden lights below illuminated her profile faintly. She leaned against the railing, not looking at me, her gaze fixed on the city lights in the distance. Thank you, she said suddenly. For what? For not letting me lose face. I paused before replying. You knew this would happen. I had a feeling. She turned to face me, the wind lifting a few strands of her hair. Makoto's intentions, my parents' attitude, and she stopped herself, and my shortcomings. I finished for her. Willow smiled faintly, a touch of bitterness in it. George, you're always like this, so eager to blame yourself. I opened my mouth but couldn't find any words. Do you know something? She stepped a little closer, her eyes searching mine as if she wanted to see straight through me. Sometimes, I feel like you're right here, so close I could reach out and touch you. But other times, it's like you're behind a wall of frosted glass, and no matter how hard I try, I just can't see through. My heart skipped a beat. I'm just that kind of person, I muttered, avoiding her gaze. Yes, she repeated softly, you are. Her tone carried something unreadable. At that moment, the door to the terrace opened. Makoto stepped out, holding 2 glasses of champagne. So this is where you've been hiding, he said with his usual perfect smile, though his eyes had lost the easy warmth from before. Why your parents are looking for you. They said they have something to discuss. Willow frowned slightly, then glanced at me. I'll be right back. She left with Makoto, and once again, I was alone. The wind felt colder now. I leaned against the same railing where Willow had stood, my mind a tangled mess. Willow's behavior tonight, it was all wrong. Every look, every word, like she was testing something or fighting against it. And that dance, warning, detected emotional fluctuation inconsistent with mission parameters. Host, adjust your mindset immediately. Failure to comply will affect mission evaluation. The system's voice was as cold as ever. I rubbed my temples irritably. Emotional fluctuation. What a joke. I was just a little too deep in character. That's all. Yeah, that had to be it. I needed to finish this mission fast and get out of here. Chapter 12. I stayed out on the terrace for a long time. Only when I figured the noise inside must have started to die down did I finally decide to head back. But just as I reached the staircase, I heard voices coming from below, raised, sharp voices, Willow's and her mother's. I froze instinctively, stepping back into the shadows. Were you trying to embarrass Makoto today, in front of all those people? Mrs. Liu's voice was low but laced with fury. I just danced with my boyfriend. What's wrong with that? Willow's tone was icy. Boyfriend? That George? Willow, wake up. Do you even know who he is? What family he comes from? What he can offer you? Makoto is the one who suits you, his background, his abilities, his devotion to you. Whether he suits me or not, I'll decide that myself. Decide. You're bewitched by that poor nobody. I'm telling you, you'd better end it soon. Your father and I both think Makoto is the right one for you. My life doesn't need your interference. Willow cut her off, her voice cold and resolute. I won't break up with George. I leaned against the cold wall, my chest tightening painfully. She defended us in front of her parents. Why? According to the plot, she should have started drifting away from me by now, slowly accepting her parents' opinion. You're going to drive me insane. Mrs. Liu's voice rose to a near scream. Fine, if you won't break up. Listen carefully, if you choose him, then you don't have me as your mother anymore. Footsteps stormed away, sharp and angry. A door slammed. Then, silence. I stood there, frozen, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. After what felt like forever, I heard Willow's voice again. Quiet, barely a whisper, trembling ever so slightly. This time, I won't let go again. Never, again. This time. Again. My head jerked up, staring down the staircase. Willow was gone. Only the empty hallway and dim lights remained. Her words echoed in my mind like thunder, shattering through me. A wild, impossible thought began to form, uninvited, unstoppable. Could it be? No, that was insane. I stumbled down the stairs, mind spinning. The guests had mostly left. Only the staff were tidying up. Willow stood by the door, seeing her parents off. Mr. Liu's face was stone cold. Mrs. Liu's eyes were red as she glared at Willow one last time before slamming the car door. The car sped off into the night. Willow stood there, motionless, her silhouette fragile against the darkness. I hesitated, then finally walked over. "Are you okay?" I asked softly. She turned to me. Her face was expressionless, though her eyes were faintly red at the corners. "I'm fine. I'm used to it," she said quietly. "I'll have the driver take you home. What about you?" "I still have some things to take care of." I didn't press further, just nodded. In the car, watching the city lights blur past the window, her words replayed endlessly in my head. This time, I won't let go again. And everything she'd done tonight, so unlike her usual self. Her unnatural gentleness. That strange line, "If you're tired, you can just tell me." Her insistence on dancing with me in front of everyone. A single, startling, impossible thought crystallized in my mind. Could she have memories too? Memories that didn't belong to this timeline, memories of the future. In that future, did we break up? And she regretted it. So this time, she was trying to change it. That's why she said she wouldn't let go again. If that's true, what happens to my mission? Would the system mark this world line as collapsed? What about my reward? The car stopped in front of the apartment building. I got out, mind still fogged, everything tangled. If Willow really was reborn, did she know about my mission? Probably not. Otherwise, she wouldn't be acting like this. So, she's trying to rewrite her ending, to avoid the breakup from the previous life. Then what about me? What's an actor with a system mission supposed to do? Keep following the script until the wrap-up. Or, Chapter 13. I sat in the living room, restless, waiting until midnight before Willow finally came home. She looked utterly exhausted. Her makeup was smudged, and her eyes carried a deep weariness. When she saw me still sitting on the couch, she paused. "You're still up?" "Waiting for you," I said. She slipped off her high heels, walking barefoot across the floor, and sank into the couch across from me, rubbing her temples. She exhaled tiredly. "I'm sorry you had to see that spectacle tonight," she said hoarsely. "It's nothing," I replied, then hesitated. "You and your mother, the same old argument." She cut me off with a weary, bitter smile. "They think Makoto is the perfect match, good family, capable, beneficial for the company, good for the family's reputation. And me." She trailed off, her eyes locking on mine with a complicated look. "George," she said softly, just if, one day you found out I'm not the person you think I am, that I might have made mistakes before, even hurt you, would you hate me?" My heart sank. There it was. I forced myself to stay calm, to keep playing the role of the clueless boyfriend. "Why would you hurt me? Besides, everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what we do afterward." Willow stared at me for a long time, and suddenly her eyes reddened. She turned away abruptly, her voice trembling. "Yeah, what matters is afterward." Then she stood up, as if to escape. "I'll take a shower." "Willow," I called after her. She stopped, back still turned to me. I took a deep breath and finally asked the question that had been haunting me all night. "Downstairs earlier, you said this time. What did you mean by that?" Her body froze. The silence that followed was suffocating. Only our breathing filled the space. It was so long that I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, slowly, painfully slowly, she turned around. The fragility from before was gone. What replaced it was a calm so still it bordered on despair. "You heard," she said. It wasn't a question. "I accidentally did," I admitted, meeting her eyes. "Can you tell me what you meant by this time?" Willow walked toward me, then crouched down in front of me, tilting her head up. Her eyes were glistening, veiled with moisture, but frighteningly clear, like she could see straight through me. "George, do you believe that people can get another chance at life?" she asked quietly. Her voice was soft, but it struck my chest like a hammer. I stared at her, unable to respond. "Believe? Of course I did. I was that kind of anomaly myself. If I told you," she whispered, each word trembling but distinct, "that I've lived through one future, one where you weren't there, that in that world, I made the stupidest mistake imaginable. I let go of your hand, and then I couldn't find you anymore. George, I looked everywhere for you. I lost my mind, I really lost it." Her tears broke free, falling hot against the back of my hand. "So this time," she clutched my hand tightly, desperately, as if it were her only lifeline. "No matter what happens, I won't let go again. No matter what my parents say, no matter what Makoto does, no matter whether you still want me or not, I won't let you leave me. Never again. Her words fell heavy and relentless, shattering everything I thought I understood, every bit of composure, every layer of pretense. She really was reborn. In her so-called previous life, after our breakup, she regretted it, and whatever happened afterward, it must have been bad. She couldn't find me. Of course not. Once the mission was done, I would have left this world entirely. How could she ever find me again? I stared at her, the proud, composed CEO now stripped bare, crying, clinging to me like someone drowning, and something twisted painfully inside me, shock, disbelief, and a strange, bitter ache I couldn't name. All this time, I thought I was just acting, just doing my job, but I never imagined my co-star was working from a completely different script, a rebirth tragedy romance, and me, the so-called supporting male character, turned out to be the man she lost and could never forget. What the hell kind of story was this? Chapter 14. Willow cried herself to sleep, her head resting beside my knee, faint tear stains still visible on her face. Watching her, I realized, for the first time, I wasn't seeing her as a female lead or a mission target. She was just a real person, fragile, terrified, someone who had once lost everything, and was desperate not to lose it again. Carefully, I lifted her into my arms and carried her to the bedroom. When I pulled the blanket over her, she unconsciously grabbed the edge of my shirt and murmured, "Don't go." My hand froze midair. After a long hesitation, I gently pried her fingers away and stepped out of the room. I spent the rest of the night on the couch, sleepless. As dawn approached, the system chime broke the silence. Warning. World line deviation severe due to uncontrollable factors. Task target has awakened partial past life memory. Mission difficulty upgraded. Probability of achieving original, peaceful breakup, ending below 10%. Recalculating. New mission issued, without revealing host identity. Stabilize the target's emotional state and guide the world line toward a new equilibrium ending. Reward. Base points doubled. Additional bonuses based on completion. Warning. If the target's emotional breakdown causes world line collapse, host will be forcibly erased. Erased. What the hell? I nearly jumped off the couch. This was bad, really bad. It was supposed to be a simple job, act, follow the script, finish the mission, get paid. Now it was about life and death. Calm her down, guide the world line. How the hell was I supposed to do that? Tell her, don't panic, honey. Once I finish my mission, I'll vanish, go live happily ever after with Makoto. Yeah, that'd definitely break her, and me along with it. Unless I went along with it. A dangerous idea flashed through my mind. If Willow believed I was the lover she lost in her previous life, then maybe I could use that. Pretend I remembered something too. Play along. Act like we really were reuniting after tragedy. Stabilize her emotions. Keep the world line intact, then figure out how to exit cleanly. The thought grew wild in my mind. Unstoppable. Risky. Yes, but it seemed like my only chance of survival. Besides, the system did mention extra rewards. I looked out the window as the first light of dawn crept in and made up my mind. Fine, I'll act. It's just another role, right? From today onward, George would no longer be a disposable supporting character. He would be the lost love, the one the CEO couldn't forget, the man reborn in her second chance at love. Chapter 15. When Willow woke up, the sun was already high in the sky. She walked out of the bedroom and saw me sitting at the dining table. On it was a simple breakfast, rice porridge, a fried egg, and a few slices of toast. She stopped for a moment, dazed, as if she couldn't tell whether this was reality or just another dream. "You're up, eat something," I said, keeping my tone as natural as possible, though softer, gentler than usual. She slowly came over and sat down, staring at the porridge without moving. "You made this?" "Yeah, just threw something together. It might not taste great." She picked up the spoon, scooped a small bite, and brought it to her lips. She chewed slowly. Then she lifted her gaze to me. Her eyes were still a little swollen, but the usual composure had returned to them, though somewhere deep inside, I caught a flicker of cautious searching. "Last night, did I say something strange?" she asked. There it was, the test. I set my cup down, met her eyes, and paused deliberately before answering. "You said, you dreamed that we broke up, that you couldn't find me anywhere." Her grip on the spoon tightened, her knuckles turning white. "And then," she asked quietly, "and then you said," I continued, keeping my tone layered, gentle, a little pained, a little confused, "that it felt too real. So real it scared you." I reached out and placed my hand over hers on the table. Her fingers were cold, trembling slightly, but she didn't pull away. "Willow," I said softly. "It was just a dream. See, I'm right here, aren't I?" She looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes shimmered again, but she held back the tears. Then she turned her hand and gripped mine tightly. "Yes, just a dream," she repeated, as if convincing herself, but her gaze locked onto me, filled with desperate pleading. So you won't leave me, right? George, promise me, no matter what happens, you won't disappear like in that dream, okay? Her eyes were filled with a raw, almost obsessive kind of fear and need. I knew perfectly well what this was, a promise I couldn't possibly keep, but if I wanted to survive, I had no choice but to nod. All right, I said quietly, I promise. The moment the words left my mouth, I could see the tension drain out of her shoulders. It was like watching someone lay down a burden they'd been carrying for years. She lowered her head slightly. Her shoulders trembled, maybe from tears, maybe from laughter, I couldn't tell. Eat your porridge before it gets cold, I said gently, pulling my hand back. She picked up the spoon and started eating quietly. Sunlight streamed through the window, spilling across us, bathing the room in a strange, peaceful warmth. But I knew, this peace was an illusion. From this moment on, my relationship with Willow had entered an entirely new, unpredictable, and dangerously fragile phase. And in this story, I was no longer just an actor. I was the director, and the only one who knew the ending wasn't written yet. I had to play my part well, for the reward, and more importantly, to stay alive. Chapter 16. The rumors at the company began to change direction. What used to be, when will George get dumped, gradually shifted into, looks like President Liu might actually be serious this time. Makoto's gaze toward me changed too. The friendly facade was gone, replaced by something darker, confusion, resentment, maybe even a trace of disbelief. I knew then that I was dancing on the edge of a knife. Every time Willow looked at me with those tender, trusting eyes, I had to remind myself again and again. This is an act. This is for the mission. This is to survive. But sometimes, when she fell asleep beside me, her face soft and unguarded in the dim light, I couldn't help but feel a flicker of uncertainty. Was deceiving her like this really the right thing to do? What would happen if one day she found out the truth, that everything was a lie? I didn't dare imagine it. All I could do was take things one step at a time. That night, Willow received a phone call. It was from her father. His tone was harsh, angry, scolding about something I couldn't hear clearly. Willow's expression darkened as she listened. By the end, she simply said coldly, "My life is none of your concern," and hung up. She tossed the phone onto the couch and rubbed her hair in frustration. I poured her a glass of water. She took it but didn't drink. Instead, she looked at me and said quietly, "My father just froze the funding for several of my projects." I paused. Because of me? Partly. Her lips curved in a bitter smile. Mostly. He's trying to pressure me into yielding to the Ito family. And you? I won't yield, she said firmly, cutting me off. Her eyes were sharp as glass. I can handle those projects on my own. As for you, she stood up, came closer, and looked up at me, her gaze unwavering. George, do you believe in me? Believe in what? Believe that I can protect you. Believe that we can make this work. Her eyes were fierce and vulnerable at once, filled with determination that refused to be denied. In that moment, I realized she didn't really need my protection. She was strong enough on her own. I nodded. I believe you. She smiled, relieved, almost radiant, like she had just regained some vital strength. Then she stepped forward and wrapped her arms around me, pressing her face against my chest. George, she murmured, voice muffled but trembling, don't lie to me. My body stiffened, my heart beat loud in my ears. Why would I lie to you? I forced my voice to sound calm. She said nothing, only tightened her hold around me. A few days later, Willow took me to a business cocktail party. I knew immediately what it meant. This was her way of making a statement to the world. And indeed, the moment we entered, all eyes turned toward us. Willow held onto my arm the entire evening, calm and poised, her confidence radiating effortlessly as she greeted everyone. When we ran into Makoto, his polite smile faltered. President Liu, Mr. Wang, you two seem inseparable, he said, raising his glass, his tone laced with acid. Willow smiled faintly. Vice President Ito, you're joking. Of course I'd want to keep my boyfriend close, so I can rest easy. Makoto's eyes darkened. He said nothing more and walked away. I watched Makoto's back as he walked away, and instead of any sense of triumph, all I felt was a heavy, oppressive tension, like the calm before a storm. Halfway through the cocktail party, I excused myself to use the restroom. When I came out, Makoto was waiting for me in the corridor. The polite mask he always wore was gone. His expression was dark, his eyes sharp and full of hostility. George, he said in a low, angry voice, what kind of poison did you feed her? I don't know what you're talking about. Vice President Ito, don't play dumb. He stepped forward, close enough that I could feel his breath. You're not good enough for her. You'll only drag her down. If you have any sense, you'll leave on your own. I stared at him. For some reason, his fury made me strangely calm. Whether I'm good enough or not, that's not for you to decide, I said evenly. And whether I leave or stay, that's my choice. His jaw tightened. His eyes burned with something wild and ugly, like he wanted to tear me apart right there. Then, without another word, he turned on his heel and strode away. I stood there watching his retreating figure, a faint chill creeping into my chest. On the way home, Willow seemed tired. She leaned back against the seat, eyes closed, silent. Outside, the city lights streamed past the window, colorful, fleeting. I looked at her calm profile, the soft lines of her face illuminated by passing lights, and an unexpected thought crossed my mind. If this weren't a mission, if I were really just George. George, she said suddenly, eyes still closed. When these projects settle down, let's take a trip, just the two of us. I hesitated for a few seconds, then said quietly, all right. She opened her eyes and looked at me, a faint shimmer of light in them. Reaching out, she gently took my hand. Her palm was warm, steady, real, and I didn't pull away. System notification, world line stability has increased to 75%. Task completion rate, 90%. Please maintain current performance. Chapter 17. After the mission was complete, I didn't rush to return to reality, but the system notification sound was like a death knell, echoing in my head every single day. Warning. The host has overstayed in the mission world. Physical body in the real world at risk. Please plan your return as soon as possible. Forced return protocol initiating. Remaining time, 71 hours and 59 minutes. I looked at Willow, who was sleeping beside me. Even in her dreams, her brows were furrowed, and her hand unconsciously clutched the corner of my shirt. Leave. The timeline here was finally stable. If I left now, she'd probably go insane. Stay. What about my parents in the real world? The body lying in that hospital bed would probably not last much longer. The next day, I took leave, used system points to exchange for a temporary return. The smell of disinfectant hit my nose. My mom was dozing off by my hospital bed, her hair noticeably grayer. I tried to move a finger. No response. Like a living corpse. A nurse came in to change the fore and sighed to my mom. So young, what a pity. My mom didn't respond, just wiped her tears. At that moment, the pain in my chest was so intense I couldn't breathe. When I returned through the system again, the countdown was still going. Remaining time, 67 hours and 22 minutes. Willow could tell something was wrong with me. I stared at the frying pan so long the eggs turned into charcoal. George? She hugged me from behind, resting her chin on my shoulder. Did something go wrong with the project? No. I dumped the burnt eggs into the trash, just thinking, if someday I had to take a long trip. Her body stiffened, and her arms tightened around me. Where? For how long? Just a while. I couldn't meet her eyes. But I'll come back, I swear. She turned me around, her gaze sharp like a searchlight. Look at me and say it. I swallowed. Willow, no matter what happens, you have to live well. Okay. She stared at me for a full minute, then laughed, a laugh that looked more painful than crying. You're leaving me, aren't you? I didn't deny it. She cupped my face, resting her forehead against mine. Listen to me, even if you run all the way to the moon, I'll build a damn spaceship to drag you back. On the last day of the countdown, I transferred all my in-world savings to my mother in this world. Then I hacked into the banking system and added a few extra zeros to her account using the system. Willow insisted on taking me to an amusement park, said it was the only thing left on her couple's must-do list. Her hair flew in the wind as she rode the carousel, laughing so freely, so foolishly. I stood below, watching, trying to etch every single frame into my memory. Forced return initiating in 10, 9, 8. Suddenly, she jumped off the carousel and ran toward me. 3, 2, George. She threw herself into my arms, breathless. I actually knew all along you weren't. 1. I didn't hear the rest. When I opened my eyes again, all I saw was the white hospital ceiling. My mom screamed and pressed the emergency call button. I twitched my fingers, they lifted about 3 centimeters. The doctor said my awakening was nothing short of a medical miracle. Chapter 18. Later, a woman stopped me at the entrance of my apartment complex. She was wearing the champagne-colored dress from my memories, her hair now cut short, holding up an absurdly bright LED sign that read, "Summoning Ritual, Missing the Male Lead." The pancake in my hand slipped straight to the ground. Her eyes were red like a rabbit's, but she was grinning from ear to ear. The system said I needed 10 million points to travel across worlds to find you. I defeated everyone who ever stood against you, just to collect them. George. She opened her trembling arms, voice breaking. This time, it's my turn to cross worlds and chase after you. Extra story, Willow's past life, World Line 2. Chapter 1. The day we signed the breakup agreement, Beijing was hit by a rare downpour. George put the keys on the entryway table and said softly, "I'm leaving." He didn't even look at me. He dragged that half-worn suitcase into the elevator. His silhouette was thin, as if the wind might blow him away. I stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, watching the ride-hailing car vanish into the rain, and felt a sudden emptiness inside, but it was quickly replaced by a lightness, as if a problem had been solved. Makoto was right, George and I were never from the same world. He was too quiet, too ordinary, like a lukewarm glass of water that stirred no waves. A year was enough to wear away that illusion born of novelty. Breaking up was the sensible thing for both of us. I poured myself a glass of red wine and celebrated getting back to single life. The next day Makoto showed up with a huge bouquet of roses. Everyone at the office looked at me with suggestive eyes. I accepted his dinner invitation. Being with Makoto was effortless. He knew every social etiquette, could tell which restaurant served the most authentic foie gras, and could accurately comment on the latest financial trends. We talked mergers and markets, matched background, equal footing. This should be the life I wanted. Still, sometimes, in certain moments, I would instinctively check my phone, afraid I'd miss some irrelevant WeChat update. Then I'd remember, the one who would never send another message had already been pushed away by my own hands. Chapter 2. The first month, everything was normal. In the second month, I began to suffer from insomnia. I couldn't sleep night after night. Whenever I closed my eyes, I saw George's silent back as he left. I tried to numb myself with work, 10-plus-hour days full of meetings, until my assistant cautiously reminded me to take care of my health. It didn't help. That hollow feeling began to coil around my heart like a vine, silent and tightening. I started getting irrationally angry, because the coffee wasn't the right temperature, because a report's figures were off by a few tenths of a percent, because the driver drove poorly on a rainy day. Makoto tried to soothe me, taking me to galleries and concerts, standing in front of priceless artworks. My mind drifted to thoughts like, if George were here, he'd probably secretly look up the painter's biography and then, with portentous seriousness, tell me some obscure fact. He always had that odd store of random knowledge. I found myself remembering trivial details. He always tied on my ridiculous big orange apron when he cooked. He chewed the end of his pen absent-mindedly when reading. He slept well. His breathing was so light it was almost inaudible. Habits I once found dull or even mildly annoying now felt like a slow poison, gradually eroding my reason. In the third month, I went to that small noodle shop we used to frequent. The owner paused when he saw me. "Miss Liu, long time no see. Where's Mr. Wang?" My mouth opened, but no sound came out. Same as always, one bowl of beef noodles, one without cilantro, extra scallions, the owner asked cheerfully. I nodded and sat in our usual corner. When the bowls arrived, steaming hot, I looked at the empty seat opposite me and tears fell into my noodles without warning. It felt like I had lost him. Chapter 3. I used every connection I had to look for him, but it was as if he'd vanished from the face of the earth. His resignation letter came by email, formally worded, distant, impersonal. The apartment he rented was emptied out. His phone number deactivated. Even that social media account he almost never updated had gone silent. The last post dated the day before our breakup, a photo of the sunset outside his window, captioned with a single word, "It's fine." I went mad contacting everyone who might know him. David stammered, said he didn't know where George had gone, just that he'd been calm before leaving. Even wished him a bright future. His family address led nowhere. The neighbors said his parents had moved away long ago. No one knew where. I even hired a private investigator. The report was always the same, no trace found. President Liu, the detective said uneasily. This man, it's like he appeared out of nowhere, and then disappeared into thin air. Every information link is broken. Impossible. How could a living person just vanish without a single trace? Unless he did it on purpose. That realization sent a chill through my body. Was he that determined to erase me from his life? Not even a memory left behind. When Makoto found me, I was sitting on the apartment floor, surrounded by everything that still had a piece of George in it, a blurry Polaroid, a cheap fountain pen he'd forgotten here, a few of his old books. Willow, that's enough. It was the first time Makoto had ever raised his voice at me. He grabbed my shoulders. Look at yourself. Is this what you've become? For a man like that, is it worth it? I lifted my head and stared at him, each word heavy. Where is he? Makoto's eyes flickered. I don't know. Maybe he took the breakup money, moved to another city, started over. Willow, wake up. He never loved you. For all you know, he was only with you for the money. Shut up. I shoved him away, voice hoarse. You don't understand. You're right, I don't. Makoto's eyes reddened too. I don't understand why you can't forget a useless man. What's so great about him? He's weak, powerless, couldn't even face me like a man. He never deserved you. He never did. Get out. I pointed at the door. Makoto stared at me in disbelief before slamming the door behind him. Silence filled the room. I wrapped my arms around my knees and buried my face. Yeah, what was so great about him? Then why did losing him hurt so much? So much it felt like a piece of bone had been carved out of my body. Chapter 4. I started seeing things that weren't there. Sometimes, during meetings, I'd see him sitting quietly in a corner, listening like a transparent shadow. Sometimes, driving home, I'd feel like he was in the passenger seat, gazing out the window, his side profile hazy and unreal. But it happened most often at night. I'd swear I could hear the sound of a key turning in the lock, the soft shuffle of his footsteps, the mattress beside me sinking ever so slightly. And every time I turned around, there was nothing, only cold air, and the echo of despair. I tried drowning it all in alcohol, drank until my stomach bled and I ended up in the hospital. During the stomach pumping, half conscious from pain, I was still calling his name. My mother came to see me, crying uncontrollably. "Willow, I'm begging you, please let it go." "Okay, Makoto's not that bad. You too." I closed my eyes and refused to speak. "Let go. How do you let go?" He was like a barbed thorn buried deep in my flesh, one touch, and it tore through skin and bone. After I was discharged, I stopped talking much. I handed all company affairs to the vice president and stayed in my apartment all day, staring blankly at the few remnants he'd left behind. I kept looking at that single Polaroid. It was taken last winter, when it snowed. He was wearing a gray scarf, his nose red from the cold, looking at the camera with bright eyes and a faint smile. I'd mocked him then, said his pose was awkward. Now, I thought it was the best smile I'd ever seen. Clean, warm, a warmth I'd personally thrown away. Regret slithered inside me like a venomous snake, gnawing at my heart day and night. If time could turn back, but there are no ifs in life. Chapter 5. I saw Makoto again at a business banquet. I'd lost so much weight that my figure looked distorted. Thick layers of foundation barely hid the exhaustion on my face, but I could still feel people's stares, curious, pitying. Makoto walked over with a wine glass in hand. A young, beautiful girl by his side, the daughter of a construction magnate. "President Liu, long time no see. You look well," he said with a smile, his eyes gleaming with smug, vindictive satisfaction. I ignored him and turned to leave. He lowered his voice near my ear. "Still looking for that loser? Don't waste your time. For all you know, he's already dead somewhere no one cares about." My steps froze. Blood rushed to my head. Slowly, I turned back to face him. "Say that again." Makoto faltered for a second under my gaze, then straightened. I said, "Someone like George couldn't survive without you." Before he could finish, I grabbed a bottle of red wine from the waiter's tray and smashed it against his head. The sound of shattering glass mixed with the shrieks of startled guests filled the hall. Makoto, blood streaming down his face, stared at me in disbelief. I dropped the broken bottle neck, looked straight into his eyes, and said in a voice cold and steady as steel, "Who do you think you are, to even speak his name?" Security rushed over. I smoothed my dress, calm as ever, and walked out of the banquet hall through the chaos. Outside, it was raining, just as hard as the day George left. I stood in the downpour, letting the icy water wash over me. My face was wet. I couldn't tell if it was rain or tears. In that moment, something inside me collapsed completely. If this world no longer had him in it, then let it all burn. Chapter 6. It took me half a year, ruthless, methodical, unrelenting, to bring down the Ito family's company. Makoto's father eventually fell to his knees before me, begging for mercy. I looked at him like he was an insect. "Did you think about mercy?" I asked coldly, "when you forced him to leave?" The Ito family went bankrupt. Makoto Ito fell from his pedestal, buried under debts, vanishing without a trace. Rumor had it someone later saw him in a slum on the outskirts, gaunt, hollow-eyed, like a beggar. It still wasn't enough. Anyone who might have had a hand in George's disappearance, I didn't spare a single one. That female representative from a partner company who once showed interest in him, I destroyed her reputation, drove her out of the city. Anyone who mentioned George in front of me with even a hint of disdain, I made sure they paid for it. I became the industry's mad queen, the woman everyone feared. They said I was cruel, vicious, that I'd gone insane over a man. And they were right. I was insane. From the moment I lost him, I had already died. What remained was just a hollow shell, a corpse animated by obsession. I moved back into the apartment we once shared. Every night, I slept on his side of the bed, under the same blanket he once used, pretending I could still smell his warmth there. I learned to cook the dishes he used to make, though they never tasted quite right. I even started mimicking his little habits, like biting the pen when reading. It made me feel closer to him, as if, in doing so, he'd never really left. Chapter 7. The third winter was especially cold. I received a phone call. It was that same private investigator. His voice trembled with unease. "President Liu, we found something strange." "Speak." "It's about Mr. George's parents. We followed the trail, and we discovered they died in an accident 20 years ago." The phone slipped from my hand. Impossible. George had talked about his parents. I rushed into the study, pulled out every document I had on him. His ID number, education certificates, employment records, everything looked perfect, seamless. But what if all of it was fake? A wild, terrifying thought struck me like lightning. He hadn't disappeared. Maybe he never even belonged to this world. That thought made me tremble with fear. and with a glimmer of desperate hope. If he wasn't from here, then maybe, somewhere out there, he was still alive. I threw myself into researching everything I could find about parallel worlds and time travel. I funded fringe scientific projects that mainstream academia called frauds. I sought out so-called masters hidden away in ancient mountain temples. Everyone said I'd gone completely mad. I didn't care. As long as there was even the faintest chance, I would never stop searching. Chapter 8. On a snowy night, I swallowed a handful of sleeping pills. In my hand, I clutched that single Polaroid. As my consciousness began to fade, I thought I saw George. He stood bathed in white light, wearing the white shirt from the day we first met, smiling softly at me. George, I reached out, wanting to touch him, but he stepped back, shaking his head, eyes filled with sorrow. Come back, I pleaded through tears. Please, come back. His figure grew fainter and fainter, until it vanished completely into the light. No. I opened my eyes with a gasp, only to see the stark white hospital ceiling and my mother's face, swollen from crying. The stomach pump tube scraped down my throat, pain twisting my body. I didn't die. Even death had become a luxury. After I recovered, I sold the company and donated most of my wealth. All I kept was the apartment and everything that still held a piece of him. Every day, I sat by the window, watching the people passing below, hoping that, in some fleeting moment, I might see that familiar silhouette again. Years passed, until one day, staring into the mirror at the gray-haired, dim-eyed old woman reflected there, I suddenly realized how much time had slipped away. A long life, yet so short. I had gained everything others envied, and lost the only light I ever cared about. Before I died, I asked the nurse to place that yellowed Polaroid in my hands. With the last of my strength, I looked at the young man in the photo, his smile still so pure. Next time, I'll find you, and I'll never let go again. As my mind sank into darkness, I thought I heard a sigh. Then came a tearing pain, as if my very soul was being ripped apart and rebuilt. When I opened my eyes again, I saw George, dressed neatly in a suit, standing nervously in my living room. He gave me a polite, slightly awkward smile. President Lou, hello, I'm George, the new member of the project team. Extra Story 2, Sunny Day, World Line 3, Chapter 1. Sunlight slipped through the gap in the curtains and danced across my eyelids. I reached out instinctively. The space beside me was empty. My heart skipped a beat, and I woke instantly. Rushing out of the bedroom, I caught the faint scent of burnt eggs from the kitchen and finally exhaled in relief. George, wearing that ridiculous big orange apron, was frantically turning off the stove, muttering to himself, crap, burnt again. I leaned against the doorway, watching him for a while. A real, breathing George, the one who could actually burn eggs, not the fragile shadow from my dreams. Good morning, President Lou. He turned and saw me, scratching his head sheepishly. I was trying to make you a heart-shaped breakfast, but, I walked up behind him, wrapped my arms around his waist, and pressed my cheek against his still warm back. Burnt's fine too. His body tensed for a second, then relaxed. He placed his hands over mine. Don't mess around. The range hood's still on. It smells. I didn't move. We stayed like that for several minutes, until the smell of char got a bit too much. He switched off the range hood, turned around, and trapped me gently between the counter and his body. Our foreheads touched. Willow, yeah. I'm still here. His voice was low and husky with sleep, half a promise, half a whisper to himself. I know. I leaned forward and kissed him lightly. The burnt eggs ended up between two slices of toast, eaten with milk. He chewed with a frown. Next time, I'll get it right. I noticed a crumb on his lip and wiped it away with my thumb. Next time, I'll do the cooking. He blinked, then grinned, eyes crinkling into little crescents that shimmered with light. President Lou in the kitchen. Better buy a fire extinguisher first. I kicked his shin, lightly. He laughed, dodged, and caught my ankle. Sunlight filled the dining room, dust motes swirling in the golden glow. So ordinary, so dreamlike. Chapter 2. On the weekend he insisted on dragging me to the supermarket, saying our fridge was empty enough to run a horse through. I was used to online delivery and felt a bit averse to noisy, crowded places like that, but he was in high spirits, pushing the cart like a child in a playground. This brand of yogurt is good, fewer additives. Wow. Cherries on sale. Let's get a box. President Lou. Should we stock up on tissues? This brand is soft. I watched his profile as he seriously compared tissue softness, and something inside me melted. The old me would have thought these trivial things meaningless. Now, being able to pick tissues together with him felt like the most lavish kind of happiness in the world. Take that one. I pointed to the pack in his left hand. Roger. He grinned and tossed the tissue into the cart. Passing the snack aisle, he secretly dropped 2 packs of spicy strips into the cart. I raised an eyebrow at him. He immediately raised his hands in surrender. Occasionally, just occasionally, a little treat. I promise I won't overeat. I said nothing, grabbed 2 more packs, and threw them in too. His eyes lit up. He leaned in and planted a quick kiss on my cheek. Long live President Liu. People glanced over. I felt a little embarrassed, my ears burning. He, however, was completely oblivious and continued enthusiastically studying new chip flavors. At checkout, the cashier looked at our mountain of goods and teasingly asked, "Did you two just move in together?" As George packed the bags, he answered casually, "No, just spending the weekend with my girlfriend." Girlfriend. Such an ordinary word, coming from his mouth. It made my heart skip. He picked up the 2 biggest bags and handed me the lightest one. "Let's go home." Home. Chapter 3. The word home used to mean only a place to sleep for me. Now it was being filled, bit by bit, by George. There were a few pots of pothos on the balcony that he kept. They were thriving. His books and my reports were squeezed together in the study, lines blurred. On the sofa sat the sci-fi novel he'd been halfway through, side by side with my finance magazines. On weekend nights he dragged me to the movies. We watched an old, cliched romance, misunderstandings, reconciliations, predictable as ever. I leaned on his shoulder, half dozing. When the scene came where the couple reunited and kissed in the rain, he suddenly paused the film. "Willow. We've never really argued, have we?" I opened my eyes. "You want to argue?" "No." He scratched his nose. "I just feel it's been too smooth, like it's fake." My chest tightened. I grabbed his hand. "It's real." I looked into his eyes. "You're real. I'm real. Us being together now is real." He was quiet for a few seconds, then smiled and took my hand in return. The movie resumed. He turned the volume down and rested his chin lightly against my hair. "Actually, a little fight wouldn't be so bad," he murmured. "You could complain I don't wash the bowls properly. I could tease you for being a workaholic who never stays home." "I'm not a workaholic," I protested. "Who was working at 2 in the morning last week?" He called me out. "That was a special case. What about the week before?" "See," he crowed, triumphant. "President Liu, you have to admit, you can't live without work." I pinched the soft flesh at his waist. "And you? Can you leave your pothos and spicy sticks behind?" He laughed and dodged. We wrestled on the sofa. The projector light painted the wall. On screen the lovers finally resolved their misunderstandings and lived happily ever after. Chapter 4. I hadn't planned to attend the company's anniversary gala. George said, "Come on." I've never seen President Liu in full boss mode. He chose a simple, decent suit for himself, but his hands were clumsy when tying the tie. I walked over and took it from him. Head down. He obediently lowered his head. My fingers brushed through his hair as I tied a Windsor knot, a motion I'd rehearsed countless times in my mind. In my previous life, I could only imagine doing it to thin air. Now, I could feel the steady pulse beneath his skin, the warmth radiating from his neck. All done. I straightened his collar. He looked up at me, eyes deep and unreadable. "Willow, when did you learn to tie a tie?" "I just watched a tutorial online," I said with a straight face. He chuckled, didn't press further, and instead lifted my hand to his lips, kissing it lightly. "Let's go." My date. The gala was dull. Speeches, awards, networking. I sipped wine, exchanging small talk with the endless stream of guests. George stayed close by, quiet but perfectly composed, occasionally catching my gaze and winking playfully. Someone came over to toast, probing between words, asking where Mr. Wang was working these days. Before George could respond, I cut in smoothly. "He's taking some time off, helping me with private investments." The man nodded politely and moved on. Once he was gone, George leaned close, his warm breath brushing my ear. "President Liu, since when am I your private investment consultant?" "Starting now," I replied evenly. "Annual salary, $1. Take it or leave it." "I'll take it," he said without hesitation. "Generous boss." Midway through the night, the dance floor opened. Many eyes turned toward us. I glanced at him, silently asking. He smiled and extended a hand. "President Liu, may I have this dance?" Unlike at the last birthday party, this time he danced gracefully, steady steps, confident lead. "You've been practicing?" I asked, surprised. "Can't let my girlfriend lead forever," he said with a slightly smug grin. We turned slowly with the music, light rippling over us. He softly hummed along, off-key, but somehow beautiful. "George." "Yeah." "Nothing. Just wanted to say your name." He tightened his arm around me, drawing me closer. "I'm here." Chapter 5. After the gala, the driver took us home. In the car, I felt a little tired and leaned my head against his shoulder, pretending to doze. He shifted slightly, adjusting his posture so I could rest more comfortably. At a red light, I felt him press a soft kiss to my hair. "Willow, let's get a cat." I opened my eyes. "Why the sudden idea?" "The house feels a bit empty," he said, watching the flow of cars outside. "I think you'd like it." I remembered. In another life, Passing by a pet shop once, I had lingered a moment longer in front of a ragdoll kitten. Had he remembered that? Okay, I said. That weekend, we went to an animal rescue shelter. There were many cats and dogs, noisy and lively. George stopped in front of one cage and didn't move. Inside was a small orange kitten, barely weaned, fur uneven and messy. One ear had a tiny notch, but its eyes were bright, alert, watching us cautiously. The staff explained that its mother had been hit by a car, and it was the only survivor, a bit timid, afraid of people. George reached out a finger, touching the cage gently. The kitten flinched, but didn't pull away. It doesn't seem very popular, he said quietly. You're picking this one? I asked. Yeah, he nodded. It's like you. I raised a brow. I'm like a stray cat. Exactly, he smiled, his eyes curving. Looks fierce, but soft-hearted. And once it decides on someone, it's completely loyal. Something inside my chest gave a small, trembling thump. In the end, we finished the paperwork and brought the little orange cat home. George carried the carrier as if it were something precious. Give her a name, he said. I looked at those wary yet trusting eyes inside the box and said, let's call her Sunny. George blinked, then smiled, the sunlight streaming across his face, warm and golden. All right, Sunny it is. May our days, from now on, never see another shadow. Chapter 6. When Sunny first came home, she was timid, hiding under the sofa and refusing to come out. George didn't rush her. Every day, he'd place food and water in the same spot, then sit a short distance away reading or chatting softly with me. A few days later, her orange cat genes started to awaken. When we weren't looking, she'd dart out, grab a few bites, and scurry back into hiding. A few more days, and she dared to circle George's legs, tail twitching curiously. After a month, she was curling up on his lap, purring herself to sleep, but she was still cautious with me. Whenever I got close, she'd dart away. George said, she's jealous, thinks I'm yours. I was speechless. One weekend afternoon, I was sitting on the couch reviewing documents. Sunny had claimed George's usual spot, grooming herself with utter focus. I put down the papers and slowly reached my hand toward her. She instantly perked up, ears sharp, eyes wary. I stayed still, simply watching her. After a few tense minutes, she decided I wasn't a threat and relaxed again. I reached out and gently stroked her back. She stiffened, but didn't run. Her fur was softer than I expected. I stroked her again. A faint purr rumbled from her throat. She rubbed her face against my palm. When George came back from watering the plants, he froze in surprise. Sunny was sprawled on my lap, fast asleep, legs splayed, completely at ease. He smiled, took out his phone, and snapped a picture. Solid evidence, he whispered, amused. President Lou caught red-handed, petting session in progress. I rolled my eyes and ignored him, gently scratching Sunny's chin. The little one stretched, exposing her fluffy belly. Sunlight streamed through the window, washing over the three of us. The air carried the faint freshness of the pothos and the warmth of the sun. George sat beside me, resting his head on my shoulder, the one not occupied by the cat. Willow. This is nice. Yeah. Outside, the sky was an endless blue, spotless and bright. A sunny day.